almost noon here in Lagos, Nigeria, and lunchtime politics begins right now. First, the top stories. Well, it's official. Dangote Refinery rolls out its first batch of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol. At a time, Nigerians need all of the petrol they can get amidst long queues and price hike. Dangote adds that petrol can be available in filling stations in 48 hours, but that's dependent on the NNPC limiter. And suggestions for areas to amend in the Electoral Act are rolling in fast, as the Inter-Party Advisory Council IPAC proposes that federal and state elections take place on the same day to save costs. I will begin with one of the biggest stories in the country, and indeed Africa today, and that's Nigeria's indigenous refinery, Dangote Refinery, rolling out its first set of premium motor spirit PMS from its 650,000 barrels per day facility. Well, the $20 billion refinery, built by billionaire Aliko Dangote, began operations in January, initially producing naphtha and jet fuel. A briefing journalist this morning, the president of Dangote Group says Nigeria will have engine-friendly gasoline for the first time. He also spoke extensively with our energy correspondent Olu Phillips on the significance of this event.
This is what it is. History has been made today from the days when this whole ground was all water and got to the sand filling stages, the piling stages, and tons of engineering and fabrication going on this land. And remember, at some point on this land, this was the biggest industrial construction site in the whole world, with over close to 200 cranes working simultaneously. Today, what I have in my hand is premium motor spirit coming out from the Dangote Refinery. History is being made today, and I'm standing with a man who incidentally has gone grey pursuing this dream, and I'm going to ask him how far he wants to travel after today's achievement. Alaji.
Thank you. Well, how far, there's no limit to how far, going to, as a human being, obviously we have ambitions, and I think our own is to make sure that we make our country and Africa proud. So the journey just started, and we'll continue, we'll start. The journey has just started today, you are right. Really, even 5-6 years ago, I don't really have gray hair, but right now, it's history. But we thank God, at least we've been able to deliver. So I can say that, it's a golden gray hair, which I believe it is worth it. And I'm a very, very happy person today. I must thank really, our great team, led by Ms. Edwin, for making this dream, possible. I must thank, also Mr. Alaki for giving that support to make sure that this... And
let me just interject and ask how much of support you're getting from the present government, and if President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has thrown his weight behind what you're doing here today.
Most of my appreciation will go to, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his government for giving us all the support. People can have different perceptions, but without the support of the government, we will not be here. That's what I keep saying. And I want to put on record that I want to thank the governor of Lagos, but he has done a marvelous job by giving us all the support. 10 years ago, there was almost nothing here. But this is what you call a dream. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, then the governor of Lagos, dreamt about establishing this in about almost 18-20 years ago, and nobody thought about coming here. Actually, my first time here was just to come and look at the land. This was 2015. I've never ever been to this area of Lagos, but you can see what a dream can actually do. So I must thank him, and I pray and hope his own dream that, we used to, push Lagos up the ladder okay, he will apply 10 times that one, which I know he's trying. He will apply 10 times that in the federal government's, operations.
Okay, let me just ask you quickly. This is PMS coming up from the Dangote Refinery. You did promise us, you did tell me severally what we've been visiting here in the last 7 to 8 years that when this happens, it's going to be Euro 5, which is the highest quality of PMS you can find around the world. Can I readily put this in my car and begin to run?
Yes, you can put it in your car and begin to run. And it will actually save your engine. It will give your engine the best performance. It will not be the normal one. And you can even see our diesel. Our diesel is very light. It's like water, so which people have never ever seen before. But that is what you call Euro 5 diesel. Our diesel now is about is less than even 30 ppm, which is great. And we'll keep pushing. We'll get to 10 ppm.
Okay, so finally from me, I'm so excited to hold this, but it will be more interesting if we can drive this supply and distribution down into the countryside, down on the streets, into the cars, into the engines. I can see your gantry positions here, 177 tanks for storage, and beginning to wonder how soon can we have all these trucks crisscross the streets of Lagos and supply petroleum products.
Our gasoline can be, that is PMS, can be in filling stations in the next 48 hours, depending on NNPC.
Would you want to comment on pricing? How much would you sell per liter of this PMS?
On PMS, what I told you, it is an arrangement which was designed and approved by Federal Executive Council, led by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. As soon as it is finalized, which he is pushing, once we finish with NNPC, it can be today, it can be tomorrow, we are ready to roll into the market.
So they have an extensive conversation now that Dangote Refinery has at least rolled out its first batch of products. But let's explore this conversation further. It's a big day for energy for Nigerians and even for Africa at large. We're joined on the program by an energy analyst, Adeyemi Adeoye, joins us virtually on the program. You're welcome to Lunchtime Politics, Mr. Adeoye. Well, Mr. Adeoye, I'll need you to unmute so we can get your response in. All right.
My apologies. Thanks, Kennedy.
It's okay. I know that this is a big day, perhaps for you as well. So you maybe wanted to soak all of that in and then begin to process what would happen from now. So let's explore that. Listening to the conversation, it looks like there are a few boxes that we need to speak to. Quality looks like has been checked, judging from what he has said. But the other two boxes, which I want us to speak to, is in terms of supply and price. This is happening at a time the Nigerians are queuing endlessly at filling stations. Some don't even have petrol to buy. They've left their vehicles at home, taking public transport. Some cannot power their generating sets and by extension, their businesses. So when he said that this is dependent on the NNPC Limited in terms of supply, and the pricing is dependent on the President and the Federal Executive Council, I'd like you to speak to those two issues, because that is really what Nigerians want to know. Would we get the product and at what price?
All right. First off, once again, thanks for having me. And it's a beautiful day for Nigeria, for Africa. This is, in fact, congratulations are well in place to the government and people of Nigeria on a day like this, because energy crisis is a national security crisis, in my view. And in spite of all the issues, all the controversies that has been on, it's which is of course unfortunate that something of this magnitude, something of this positive impact could develop such controversies. That's quite unfortunate. But in spite of that, we have seen this day, and I think congratulations are well in place. Having said that, with regards to pricing and supply, the government has to be intentional. Government has to be very intentional. This is, when we talk about national security, we forget the part of economic security. They go hand in hand, okay? Because if there's an economic crisis, it will impact national security in minutes. So this is a major national security issue, and the government should and must see it in that light. Well, I mean, and in that view, the NNPC and the government of the day really need to sit down with the operators of the Dangote Refinery and determine intentionally, in the interest of national security, what the pricing would be, given that Nigeria is not like the free market in like the USA or Europe. Nigeria has not gotten to that level yet. So government, especially when it comes to petroleum products, government intervention is still key. It's still very important. So my take is, away from all the controversies, away from all the back and forths, Nigerian government need petrol on the street. They need petrol across the country. Otherwise, there could be chaos. There could be issues, because this is a country that is already stressed up in terms of the economic situation. We just came out of a nationwide protest, and we shouldn't be going into another one anytime soon. The whole world is winding down now, preparing for the end of the year. We should be in that level. We should also key into that mood. So the NNPC is key. I understand what Alhaji Dangote is saying there. The NNPC is key because the NNPC has to determine, because it's the sole importer of petroleum products for the country as we speak. So it is, and it's the main stakeholder when it comes to, especially in the downstream sector. Even in the upstream, in the oil sector in general in Nigeria, the NNPC is the main stakeholder. So it's important. And one last thing I would like to add is that you see all these controversies we talk about. I mentioned earlier how unfortunate it is that we have something we need so much, and it ended up in this sort of controversy. Now, there are issues on the right, there are issues on the left. It's unfortunate that it got to a head and, it became a media war and all of that. But the point I need to make is that if the focus, the goal and the purpose is the Nigerian people, right. If the focus, the goal and the purpose is to ensure that the Nigerian people are able to get petrol at the pumps whenever they need it at the most friendly price, then this controversy will not be much. But if we are catering to an interest group in the society, whether it's the Dangote, the investors, or whether it's the government arm, then we will continue to have crisis. But if the Nigerian people, the key focus here, the crisis will be reduced. So definitely government needs to sit down with the owners of the Dangote refinery and they need to be intentional about this. Yeah, and they need to be intentional. This is not the time to talk about profit. Yes, it's profit organization, profit-making organization. It needs to be profit, but right now it's about the country first.
Mr. Adeoye, it looks like you're saying that subsidy should continue at this rate, and you say that essentially Nigeria is not a free market. We don't seem to be able to afford that. But I want you to speak to the specifics, right, and manage expectations for Nigerians. You said that this is a great day, happy day, but I go back to that question around costing. And maybe supply should be a given, right? But costing or the pricing. So I imagine that we've removed all of the landing cost issues, the FX challenges as well, because I do not expect that we'll be buying petrol from Dangote in dollars, right? Even because Nigeria said it will sell crude to Dangote in Naira. So removing all of these extra costs, or at least strains, do you think it will bring down the price of petrol in Nigeria, or shoot it up beyond the 600 that we're seeing now?
So, first off, when I mentioned that government should be intentional, what I am actually alluding to is that the pricing, government should determine with the people, with the owners of Dangote Refinery. And why did I say that? Well, I said that because currently in the United States, the average price for gasoline across the continental United States is $3.33 per gallon. Now, when you convert that at about 1585 exchange rate, you'll be getting about 5,279 naira per gallon. A gallon contains 4 liters, right? Now, if you further break that down into 4 parts, it comes down to 1,319 naira 75 kobo a liter. I repeat, 1,319 naira 75 kobo a liter. So if the Dangote Refinery is allowed to run as a business interest, as a profit-making interest, it won't sell below this price. It might even be higher. It probably won't sell. Maybe it will be a little bit lower than this, but it will be dancing around this. So, but seeing that the purchasing power in Nigeria is very low, yeah, the economy is, I mean, there's inflation globally, so it's not a Nigerian thing. In America, we suffer inflation all over the world. In fact, the UK economy, I think, is in recession as we speak, so it's a global phenomenon. But we also understand that the issue in Nigeria is the purchasing power issue. So the government need to agree with the Dangote Refinery, because as we speak, there is subsidy going on. The only difference is that the imports of NNPC is being subsidized. If government remove that subsidy payments and all that, and I mean, it used to be subsidy to marketers before, but now it is subsidy to the sole importer of petroleum product. In my view, that margin can be worked out between the government of the day and the Dangote Refinery, such that the price at the pump will not get to this price I just mentioned. So because this is what we buy averagely. In states like California, they are buying at about almost $5 a gallon, which is far higher than this amount I just quoted. But I'm talking about the average gasoline price across the continental United States. Even in Saudi Arabia, where, of course, they are the second largest, producer after the United States. A gallon of gasoline is about 0.58, about 58 cents, right? Which, if you break it down to 4 liters, it comes down to about 230 naira a liter. So that, of course, is Saudi Arabia. They have far lower population. I think they are below 40 million people, and they have, I mean, it's a progressive economy, and it's a very strong and solid economy. So, but if you want to look at it properly, there will be subsidy. There is no way there will not be subsidy. There are subsidies everywhere. The problem we had with subsidy initially was that the marketers were being subsidized and the products were not readily available, and they were bringing in all manner of products. So, but if Alhaji Dangote is saying that this product has a very low amount of sulfuric content, and it's the quality, the standard is good, the government can work these things out with him. I won't be able to put a figure to it, because they need to be able to decide. That's why I say they need to be intentional. Right. That what can the people of Nigeria afford, and that should speak to what they would be discussing. But there will be subsidy. At what level, I do not know, but there should be, especially for this period, until things calm down a bit.
So clearly there are still a couple of hurdles to cross on this journey, right? But at least we've seen an end to the back and forth and the anticipation. The Dangote Refinery is up and running. Looks like we're forgetting the Port Harcourt Refinery, which we shouldn't. But we'll take a moment now. And when we return, we'll explore the other issues. Is this an end to our energy struggles? Particularly the fuel scarcity, the price hikes, and the role of the NNPC Limited. He has said that the petrol can be available in filling stations in 48 hours plus, but it is dependent on the NNPC Limited. What does that mean, and how do we cross that hurdle yet again? These and other issues we'll raise with Mr. Adeoye, as well as other political issues. Just stay with us. Hey, welcome back to the program. This is one conversation you definitely want to be a part of. Everyone is affected by petrol, the availability or otherwise of it, either directly or indirectly. There are people spending hours at fuel stations, queues unending. Some don't have petrol, and it just looks like this is the new normal. But something very significant happened early on, and it's the Dangote Refinery rolling out products, but they're not at your filling stations just yet. And we'll be speaking with Mr. Adeoye, who is an energy analyst, just to understand what the coming days hold. Mr. Adeoye, thank you for staying with us. So I'll speak into that all-important point of having the petrol from the refinery to our filling stations, by extension, reducing the fuel queues and all of the energy insecurity in that sense. So when he says that this is dependent on the NNPC Limited, what sense do you get from that statement?
I think he's speaking basically to regulations and pricing. When it comes to distribution nationwide, the NNPC is not currently refining petrol, so it's speaking to pricing basically, because it has to be worked across. Currently, NNPC's importation is subsidized, right? So that is why they can, the scarcity today is due to some, shortfalls in initial paybacks for supply payment. I think that's about $6 billion or something of that nature. So that is what is causing the current, queues that we have all over the country. So government has been footing this subsidy, and because of the energy crisis I mentioned earlier that we need to avoid at all costs, government has to be intentional. Now, whatever subsidies are being given to the NNPC by the government and all of that, it has to be worked out on how these can be used to support the Dangote Refinery. Because let's face it, that refinery can supply the entire daily consumption needs of the Nigerian state. So why do we want to make an issue unnecessarily out of it? It's just a sit down and walk out issue. And like I said earlier, it has to be in the interest of national security. So the government can tell Alhaji Dangote that based on this policy, I mean, it's a Nigerian company. Government is the biggest entity in the country. They can work this thing out and say, this should be the pricing, even if it's for the first 6 months or for the first 1 year. And this will be subsidized, because right now, NNPC's importation is affected. So that's why they're accused. If Dangote can fill in the gap, I think that should be worked out immediately.
Well, very interesting days ahead. The capacity of the refinery is huge. We expect that it should be able to sort our issues and be well enough for us, and even to export eventually when you add the Port Harcourt refinery to it. So we'll see how the coming days go. Maybe know how much a liter costs for Dangote refinery. That's the first leg. Then see how government can maybe meet up or otherwise. But we'll have to thank you so much for providing some insight into this issue. We've been speaking with energy analyst Adeyemi Adeoye. Thank you once again.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well, while all of that is playing out, and we'll definitely be bringing you all of the updates as they come in. But let's talk politics, particularly elections. The Inter-Party Advisory Council, that's IPAC, is proposing that all elections in Nigeria be conducted in a day, asserting that the current staggered system is not cost-effective. The council equally proposed that the office of INEC chairman be advertised to interested parties and no longer be by appointment. But these proposals were made at an interactive session of a joint committee on electoral matters with judiciary and political parties on the review and amendment of the Electoral Act.
Federal lawmakers, leaders of registered political parties and stakeholders converge for a 3-day interactive session as part of the implementation of a robust consultative work plan towards improving election technology and legislation in the nation's electoral process.
I therefore crave your indulgence to use this very rare opportunity to share with the Joint Committee those areas that you refer to as being contentious and in need of review. It will interest you to know that this is the first in a series of consultations.
I think it's important that as we walk towards the next elections, we avoid, first of all, that we take advantage of the very important amendments that were made in 2022 in the Electoral Act. Because if we do not improve on implementation of the Electoral Act for the next elections, our country's democracy could be severely challenged.
In a no-holds-barred interactive session, political parties under the aegis of the Inter-Party Advisory Council make several proposals to the electoral process, including linking the continuous voter registration to the national identification number.
The current staggered system of election is not cost-effective. A single-day election will reduce costs, minimize disruption to economic and academic activities, maintain voters' enthusiasm. To ensure the independence of the electoral compound, the appointment of INEC chairman, national commissioners, and the resident electoral commission should not be the responsibility of the executive. Rather, interested candidates for these offices should publicly express interest.
Some of the parties also have their take on the proposed amendment.
On the issue of setting up an independent appointment committee for the purpose of appointment of INEC chairman and other functionaries of INEC, I think that is also, we have reservations and objections in that regard.
The issue of party cross-capiting is also whipped up.
He said you cannot win an election on a platform of a party and you carry the victory to another political party. You no go work. I'm quoting the governor. We must make it very clear in the act that once that happens in the Senate, in the House of Rep, State Assembly, right now it is not affecting the governors. But I think we should extend it to them.
Stakeholders here believe that the 3-day interactive session will address the electoral gaps, tackle the deficiencies, and strengthen the nation's democratic institutions. Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And that's the program for this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayode Okikule. You've been served.